Yo, Vaporman here. There was a recent report on the ABC and I thought I'd give it the Vaporman treatment. Enjoy.
Well, Australians will need a doctor's prescription to import liquid nicotine next year.
We already need a prescription to access nicotine for vaping, not for the cigarettes. No, that's exempt. Not for the liquid nicotine in the sprays. No, that's fine. Children can buy that. We need a prescription right now, have done so for years. How is this news? What's the ABC going to report on next? In light of the recent attacks in New York, airport security is going to be beefed up. Talk about being behind the times. You might have wanted to cover some of the fiasco that was going on in Parliament recently with the Senate inquiry. Monkeys.
Under changes to vaping laws. The TGA has decided that from October 1, a prescription will also be required to access nicotine e-cigarettes.
Also be required. You know, there's a term going around called fake news. I don't know if this is just gross negligence, but we need a prescription already. Jesus Murphy.
For more, I'm joined now by Professor Emily Banks from the Australian National University. Emily, thank you for your time.
Hello.
Now, credit where credit is due. Hello is the correct response to being welcomed on a show. Now, Vaporman likes being fair, but unfortunately it's all downhill from here.
Can you take us through this announcement from the TGA?
So this is an evidence-based decision by the TGA.
Evidence-based. Miss Banks, you're going to talk about evidence-based? Let's look at the evidence you presented at the Senate inquiry.
So do you in any way agree that switching to vaping is likely to lead to substantial health improvements?
I cannot preempt the outcomes of our review. I apologise, Senator. I wish it was finished in time for this inquiry, but I cannot preempt the outcomes.
Okay.
And this.
So would you agree with that as a principle, that all of those carcinogenics, those 7,000 chemicals from burning tobacco are eliminated via vaping?
I cannot comment on the direct health effects of e-cigarettes.
But eliminating cigarettes eliminates 7,000 carcinogens from a cigarette. Do you agree that
there are many thousand chemicals in e-cigarettes?
No, in cigarettes. I'm talking about combustible tobacco.
I cannot be drawn on this. I am not able to preempt the outcomes.
I'm asking you how many combustible, in a combustible cigarette, how many carcinogens are there? How many chemicals are there?
I cannot comment on the
cigarettes.
outcomes of the review.
Really?
Your position is not evidence-based, it's ideologically based. And I don't know why they got this. She got $750,000, $750,000, and many months to produce a report. And that's the best she came up with. Evidence-based. My rectum.
To narrow down Australia's use of e-cigarettes to be via prescription.
It's already via prescription! They're talking about this as if it's some sort of great victory. We've broken the lines and they're in disarray.
So basically what it means is that to have e-cigarettes, people will need to go to a doctor or access a doctor via telehealth and obtain a prescription.
I got a prescription and I didn't do it just because it was a fun thing to do. I did it because I wanted to vape within the law. Now in October, people are going to have to continue doing it. And
that'll then be filled.
And how is that different to what is currently in place?
Very interesting question. Listen to the answer.
So currently it's actually illegal to have e-cigarettes in a lot of different jurisdictions in Australia.
In all jurisdictions in Australia, it's illegal to have e-cigarettes. There are fines and even jail times in some states in place. Watch this video to find out exactly what the regulations are in your particular area. In June 2020, Mr. Hunt thought it would be a good idea to just ban the importation of nicotine and slap everybody with a $220,000 fine for trying to import it. We broke the lines on that. They pushed it back to 2021 January. They want to have the same ban on nicotine and all of that. We pushed them back again. Now we've just pushed them back to October. Let's see how much further we can push back these idiots.
So it's really closing a kind of loophole in that and actually giving e-cigarette users an option, which is via prescription.
Giving us an option? My goodness. All that's changed is you're now legally going to be able to buy nicotine, God knows in what form. God knows if you can buy the regular nick and mix it yourself, or if they're just going to have some sort of jewel rip-off in the chemist. Other than that, to my knowledge, nothing has changed.
So the Health Minister, Greg Hunt, had abandoned his plan to ban the importation of these devices, saying it was due to the significant overlap with the TGA decision. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, so really this is actually making it much clearer what people can and can't do, because at the moment there's a lot of confusion.
There's still a lot of confusion. What products are going to be approved by the TGA and sold in chemists? Are we still going to be able to import 100 milligram nicotine? Or there'll be childproof caps. There's already childproof caps. They are so far behind and so out of touch, I'd find it funny if my only other option wasn't going down to the local 7-Eleven, supermarket, petrol station to pick up a damn pack of cigarettes. The nicotine in that is exempt.
And what it's really doing is responding to evidence that people who are never smokers who use e-cigarettes are much more likely to take up regular smoking.
And now that there's going to be a prescription model and possibly a crackdown in October, who knows if we don't fight back, it's going to be far easier just to go and buy a pack of cigarettes. If you expect the smoking numbers to go down because you're making a at least 95% safer option harder to get, you're out of your mind.
So it makes it really important that we narrow down that use to actually being controlled via prescription.
So then what does it mean for those who use or have been using e-cigarettes as a harm minimisation tool to get them off combustible cigarettes?
Once again, another question that won't get answered.
Well, what this means is that anybody who wants to use e-cigarettes should see their doctor and look at the different options for quitting smoking.
What options? You haven't approved anything yet. Apparently, you need a long time to be able to prove something, whether it's safe or not. You've got 8 months. And according to the TGA, not one product has been submitted to be reviewed for safety. Good luck.
At the moment, the Royal College of General Practitioners has e-cigarettes as a kind of last resort because there's not a huge amount of evidence that they're really effective.
Not a huge amount of evidence you're willing to look at or read or respond to. And anytime any evidence is presented on places like Twitter, people just get blocked.
But there are a wide range of options. And so people can, if they've tried lots of different types of ways of quitting smoking, then they can then use e-cigarettes.
And all of those wide range of options, the majority of the wide range of options are not prescription only. So basically, expect a big spike in sales for Champex and other mind-altering drugs from Big Pharma that have caused suicides because they removed warning labels off them. Oh, this regulation is great, it's fantastic.
The idea is to go to a doctor, and around over 95% of people will see their doctor annually. So it's not a massive change.
Over 95% of people will see their doctor annually. Do you know why? Generally to get a bloody health certificate so that they can take some sick time off. How many people, first of all, the majority of smokers are in lower socioeconomic groups. Other than that, 50% of people with mental health issues and 50% of our Indigenous community, or close to, are smokers. What do you think they're just going to waltz into the doctor and go, "So doctor, can you tell me a little bit about my different options and which prescription drugs from multinational pharmaceutical companies I should try to alter my brain chemistry?" Dear God.
But it really means that they will need to then engage in that relationship with their doctor and use those e-cigarettes under those circumstances.
Well, the AMA, if they're looking to increase doctor visits, there are 2 million smokers who are now going to have to take, from last I've seen, 2 visits to their doctor to discuss how they can quit smoking, when there's been a 95% safer option on the market for 15 years that people like Ms. Banks, who, by the way, just in case you want to know, recently got a promotion, have no idea about. What is this thing? What's going on? Children, look, it's for children. Obviously, this was made for children, only to get children. Give me a damn break.
Just before we talk about prescribing doctors, do you think this announcement by the TGA will mean that some people who use e-cigarettes will go back to smoking combustible cigarettes?
Yes. Once again, don't expect an actual answer from the person being interviewed.
Well, it is about getting a balance, because what it's saying is we want to avoid widespread use which might make other people take up smoking who wouldn't otherwise have taken it up, and balancing that against the needs of smokers who want to use e-cigarettes. So it's really about that balance for the whole of the population. So while it is possible that some people who are smokers might go on to use their combustible cigarettes more, it will also mean that young people who will be less likely to be exposed to e-cigarettes. And we know,
while there are smokers who will go on to use their combustible cigarettes more by switching to vaping, how does that sentence make any sense at all? Even if smokers start dual using, which is a good thing because they're going to be inhaling less combusted smoke, that's still a good thing. But how do you get from people starting to use e-cigarettes is going to mean they're going to be smoking cigarettes more? How many hours do you think there are in a day? My goodness.
that non-smokers who use e-cigarettes are on average around 3 times as likely to take up combustible smoking.
And now that vaping is going to be harder to access, which I assume there's going to be more of a crackdown on importing and stuff now that a prescription is official, even though it was official before. What do you think the people who are currently vaping, who can't be asked going to their doctor to get a prescription, what, you think they're not going to go switch back to smoking? Which was the damn question. If they're 2 times or whatever more likely to smoke cigarettes now, you've just increased that, you idiots. And I know what you're going to say. Once you make a vaping harder to get and smoking numbers go up, well, it was because of vaping all along. How transparent.
So it is about striking that balance.
We know that there's been a problem for young kids who have been taking up vaping. The Health Minister says that this decision will reduce the risk of an on-ramp for teens. Do you think it will?
You're 4 times more likely to be a smoker than a vapor if you're between the ages of 14 and 17. Those are government statistics.
Definitely. I mean, that's the aim here. And if you look at countries where e-cigarettes are widely available as consumer goods, like the US, we see around 20 to 30% of high school students report having used e-cigarettes in the last 30 days.
20 to 30% of high school users using e-cigarettes within the last 30 days. How many of them have tried cigarettes? It's amazing. All of a sudden, a new technology comes out that's 95% safer than smoking, and smoking just doesn't exist anymore. What do you think? Kids in high school, going to high school parties, are going to pull out R2-D2's appendage over here to look more adult and sophisticated? No, they're going to be smoking cigarettes. You're out of your damn mind. Any of the kids who are smart enough to choose the 95% safer option will be teased like crazy.
So it's a really, really big issue. And Scott Gottlieb, who was former director of the FDA...
Who? Former director of the FDA? Oh yeah, they've approved some gems over the past. Opioids got approved by the FDA, probably under that idiot's watch. Yeah, great example to go by.
In the US actually called it an epidemic and expressed regret that the US had not regulated e-cigarettes sufficiently to avoid that exposure to young people. So this is really a measure to reduce exposure and recreational use of e-cigarettes.
And what exposure reduction is there going to be to actually deadly combustible cigarettes? You are an idiot.
And to narrow down e-cigarette use to being via prescription.
The e-cigarette lobby has made the point that only around, I think it's up to 14 GPs can prescribe these e-cigarettes. But
I thought they were introducing legislation to make e-cigarettes prescription only. Why are there already 14 doctors who can prescribe e-liquid for e-cigarettes? News. You gotta love news in 2020. Oh, fake news is such a dangerous word to use. We should just trust the authorities and the propaganda that they're constantly spewing out. This is dangerous.
I know that in the TGA's announcement, up to, I think, 30,000 doctors can put themselves in a position to register.
Up to 1 million doctors in Australia could be in a position to prescribe nicotine. Of course, we'd have to get $1 million in the country first, but it's possible to happen.
Why are there so few? Is that number indeed correct? And will more doctors sign up to be able to prescribe?
Why is she asking her if that number's correct? Lex doesn't know anything. She hasn't done her homework. She gets paid enough to do her homework, but she doesn't do her homework. Expect another non-answer.
So this is part of the reason why the TGA has basically made this decision come into effect on the 1st of October next year, because it is next year, yes?
Yes, it's next.
Yes, it's 2020 currently, it's December. It would be nice if the people who you interviewed on such an important issue that kills 21,000 people a year and reduces the health and productivity of 2 million Australians, it would be nice if you had somebody on your program who knew what freaking year it was. I wonder if she knows where she is. You're such a ditz.
So there's a long way to go to make sure that doctors are fully aware of how to prescribe e-cigarettes, of what sorts of things they should be offering people, and to get everything in place. So there is actually a big investment in making sure that there's education for health professionals, that things are set up through pharmacies. There's a lot of work that needs to be done to make sure this is streamlined.
Alternatively, you could make a vastly safer option less regulated than a vastly more deadly option. I know logic isn't part of your wheelhouse, but you might want to sit down and think for 3 seconds and maybe look at a calendar.
Professor Emily Banks from the Australian National University, many thanks for your time today.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you is the correct response to give when somebody thanks you for coming on to their program. You know what I want for Christmas? More spray paint cans. Because you know what my New Year's revolution is going to be? More decorations. If you don't know, now you know.